It's day 12 or 14 days thinking about Anne Boleyn, and today we're thinking about her downfall. I'm aware this is a really complicated area. So many books have been written about this. I did buy a new one, especially to read. I bought Ashley Gruniger's The Final Year of Anne Boleyn, but I haven't had time to read it. So when I do get around to read it, I may well revisit this topic in the future, because different historians have different views on what exactly happened to cause Anne Boleyn to fall from power and grace. Anne is sometimes known as the 1,000-day queen because that's roughly the length of time from when she became queen and she was executed. So considering the years and years that Henry pursued her, quite a quick turnaround really. So let's have a look at some of those things that happened in the lead up to her trial. Something that happens in 1534 which is really important. Henry brings out a new Treason Act, and what this act says is you don't even have to act against the king for it to be treason. You just need to say something about the death of the king that can be taken as treason and can be punishable by death. It can be something as innocent as mentioning the fact that the king is mortal and will die one day. That's why you see at Henry's death everyone's too frightened to tell him he's close to death, because that in itself is treasonous. So he brings in this act saying that talking in any way about the king's death is treason, and that is ultimately what Anne gets executed for. So bear that point in mind. January of 1536 is a difficult month for a couple of reasons. Firstly, Catherine of Aragon dies. Now, as said previously, it has been argued by some historians that this isn't necessarily a great thing for Anne Boleyn. While she might feel it is to start with, possibly, up until now Catherine's taken the blame for everything, and now it's all on Anne, isn't it? Anne also miscarries in this month. It's been said that she miscarried the same day Catherine of Aragon's funeral, but it seems that she more likely possibly miscarried slightly before that. But in that month she does miscarry, and this seems to have been a bit of a turning point for Henry. He's decided really he's not getting any sons from her. Things then start to get a little bit more difficult. Henry also realises he can use as a bit of a scapegoat. He wants a relationship. He needs a relationship with Charles, the Holy Roman Emperor, who was Catherine of Aragon's nephew. So if he blames all of the trouble on Anne, he can still maintain a relationship with Charles. Around the April, Anne has fallen out of favour with the king. Not only does he not love her anymore, seemingly he doesn't want anything to do with her, but Henry is fickle, and what people want to do is get rid of her before he can change his mind again. So you've got Jane Seymour, who's caught his eye. Her brothers are thinking, let's encourage this one. So Cromwell doesn't really like her. They've had a fallout. They had a fallout over the dissolutions of the monasteries and the money to go towards charity. Cromwell wanted the money to go to the king. They fell out over that. So she's got Cromwell against her. She's got the Seymour brothers against her because they want her out so that Jane can come in. She really doesn't have anyone beyond her own family. You can't even count her uncle. She doesn't have anyone really on Team Anne to support her. Then what we get are two kind of key camps of gossip, which, and again, I've also always kind of read it as being Cromwell's doing in blowing this whole thing up. But I'm aware there are other people that argue other ways, and I need to look into that more. However, two key bits of kind of gossip appear that Cromwell can use. Firstly, there is this gossip that Anne has been adulterous. Because of Henry's paranoia, Cromwell is able to get into his ear and suggest, well, if she's committed adultery with one man, maybe it's her own brother. We don't know exactly where that idea came from. We know sometimes George Boleyn's own wife gets the blame, but we can't really prove that. But that's not the real clincher for, yes, the adultery is bad, but the treason part comes from an argument that she had with Henry Norris. She had supposedly made this comment to Henry Norris, who was someone that the king was very keen on, that essentially that you looked a dead man's shoes. So if the king died, you would be looking to marry me. So that comment about the king's death is taken as a plan to kill the king. That's where she's in trouble. With all this in mind, on the 2nd of May, Anne is arrested. Now they deal with kind of the men accused of adultery first, and then her brother George are tried. The sheriffs of London were ordered to come up with a grand jury, which they did very quickly, and they came up with 36 men. And the 4 men, apart from George, who were accused of adultery, so Mark Smeaton, Norris, Brereton and Weston, they are tried on the 12th of May. But it's a hostile jury. For example, one of the men on the jury owe one of the accused money, so they want them to get rid of them. One of the members of the jury is heavily in Cromwell's debt. This kind of goes on and on. So they are a biased jury, and they find them all guilty. Obviously, Mark Smeaton has confessed because he was heavily tortured, we know. So they are found guilty and they're returned to the Tower to wait for death. Anne and George were tried on the 15th of May, and they had to create a special stand for the 2,000 onlookers that came to watch the trial. As we talked about with George, it's very eloquent and really kind of got the sympathies of the people watching because of the way she spoke and because of her replies to even though she had the sympathy of the onlookers, she didn't have the sympathy of the jury. She was found guilty, and the verdict is to be burned or beheaded at the king's pleasure. So it's up to the king at that point whether she's burned or whether she gets the privilege of beheading instead. It's a very quick version, although it's a long video, of how I got to that point, to that guilty verdict. And as I said, it is obviously a lot more complicated than that. People have spent years and years of their lives researching this, so if you're interested, do go out and read some of the brilliant books out there, and I will definitely return to it in the future. So I'll see you tomorrow for day 13 when we'll think about poor old Anne Boleyn's execution.